Hi guys, this is Joe Kelly. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about um, overthinking because I'm hearing a lot of actors um, complaining about overthinking, catching themselves overthinking, and it happens for some actors often, and you might recognize yourself there. Maybe it happens to you sometimes. Maybe it happens to you only when you have a big audition, but whether it's happening to you rarely, a lot, or all the time, it's not fun, right? Because you're caught up in the thinking, and it's kind of when it starts, it's uncontrollable, and it can happen before you're acting. So when you're preparing and when you're working on your scene or on your project, and you're just starting to get stuck with a bunch of shoulds, like, oh, I should do this choice, or no, I should do her like that, or I should do him like that, or but I have to absolutely do this. It's kind of a loop, and once it starts, it's really uncontrollable. It specifically happens when you want the part, right? When it's important for you, it gets triggered even more. So sometimes before, sometimes during, like you've kind of gotten into a spiral before, or not even before, but just like as you're about to act, suddenly you might doubt your choice at the last minute, or you might start thinking to in order to be present. Or I mean, I'm not sure why people overthink, because it's just such a thing that comes out of nowhere, that it's really annoying. And then you might find yourself also overthinking after. So you've done your work, your audition, or your day of shoot, and then you can't stop thinking about what you did and how you could have done it differently, or maybe better. Maybe you think you were pushing and overacting. Maybe you think you didn't give enough and you were underacting. And so, like, it's whether it happens before, during, or after, it's just like so much mental garbage that doesn't get you anywhere, right? So it's kind of toxic, and it doesn't help for the next one, because then you've created all of that stuff, um, that's unresolved, because it's just stuff you created. So there's no solution to it. It doesn't exist, but it's therefore carried to the next one, and it gets heavier and heavier, and you start overthinking more and more. It's like an endless loop. So the problem with overthinking, of course, is that the consequence is that once you start overthinking, you're not listening anymore, right? You're not listening to your reaction to the text if you're working on it. You're not listening in the moment. You're unable to listen to your partner. You're unable to listen to the direction. You're really not present at the end of the day. If you're thinking, you're not being, right? And that's what's required of an actor. Acting is the art of being alive. It's not the art of thinking. That's probably the reserved for philosophers, maybe. So yeah, if you're not listening, if you're not present, and if you're overthinking when you make your choice, you're not really committing to a choice, right? You're not hearing what the choice is for you, and you keep thinking, oh, maybe there's a better choice, maybe there's a better way to do it, maybe there's the right way, or this is more interesting. And so you're kind of looping so much. You're not really engaging and committing to one choice and going for it. So it keeps you out of the game. It really makes you unpresent, and you're up in your head, and you're not able to react well when you act. If you're thinking, there's really no freedom. At the end of the day, there's no freedom. There's no instinct. It's a yucky sensation, right? It's uncomfortable. Just thinking about it right now and talking about it, I'm like, yeah. It's just not fun. It's draining, because again, it's thoughts that you invent about things that you should do, or that you have to do, or that you will have to do, or that you should have done. So you're creating problems that don't exist, and therefore there's no solution. So the only thing you can do with them is to loop them, and that's terrible. The thing that I want us to discuss is why that's happening, because the problem is not really the overthinking. It is a problem at the end of the day when you're acting, because it prevents you from being present. But it's not the real problem. It's just actually kind of the symptom, one of the symptoms of a real problem that's happening. And I think that's where I would like for us to orient our discussion. So, why are you overthinking? What's happening when you're overthinking? Why does that mechanism start? And the reason why will give us your solution. So, the reason why you start overthinking is because you want to get it right, because you want to be better, because you want to get it perfect. And I could put quotes on each and every one of those words. Get it right doesn't exist. Become better doesn't exist. Get it perfect is already there. So it's like once you start thinking that you can, in a way, manipulate the outcome and the result, that you can, in a way, kind of outsmart life, that you can trick all of this audition and actually influence the results. So in a way, it is a manipulation, because you think there is a right way, there is a perfect way that will get you the job, or that will give you the claps. Well, that's why you do it, right? Because if you rewind and remember when you were a child and you were playing, which all of us did, whether we were child actors or not. You play with your Play-Doh, you play with your trucks, you play with your Barbies, whatever it is that you do as a child, you play. Did you ever see a child, or do you remember yourself like scratching your head and thinking, how should I play this trucker? Or how should this hairdresser be? No, you didn't, because you're so interested in the life that this hairdresser or the trucker or the Barbie or whatever, or the Play-Doh is living. You're so curious and interested that that's what you're obsessed with. You're not obsessed with convincing anyone of how good you are. You're not obsessed with how perfect your character will be. You're obsessed with living it, right? So what happens is that when you're little, you have all that freedom, that instinct, and that interest in actually the experience. And then, of course, you're conditioned. You go to school, and the parenting education that happens in our mostly traditional families, which is to tell you that there is a right way and a wrong way, to tell you that you can be better or worse, that it's better to be better, and that so the measuring and the comparing ourselves to each other, and being told that there is a certain way to think and certain things to think and to behave, etc., suddenly starts to make you walk away from that very innocent and naive playfulness where you were actually really interested in living what your character was living when you were little, to you get to a place where you're like, oh, okay, so I have to think, because that's all I've ever done since I started kind of being able to talk and going to school. All I have to do is think, because there's good, there's bad, there's right, there's wrong, there's better, there's worse. So there's a perfect way to do it. I can always get a better grade than the others. I can be better. I can be perfect. You should reach for perfection. That's how we're wired. So inevitably, the reaction, or what's the word I'm looking for? The continuity of that conditioning is that when you become an actor, you're going to start overthinking what you're doing. When, again, acting is not the art of thinking. Acting is the art of being alive. Acting is the art of you being able to go back to that place when you were a child and you were free and instinctive and you weren't trying to be interesting. You were actually interested in the experience. And that's where there's a gap for you as an adult. You're no longer interested because you've been led to believe that what you're interested in doesn't matter. What you're feeling doesn't matter. It's what others want of you that matters. So that's why you're trying to be interesting. And in order to try and be interesting, you're scratching your head. You're overthinking to find a way to be interesting, and possibly more interesting than the others, so that you can book the job. So do you see how this is completely not authentic, not present, not alive? that is manipulative of the outcome. And you might not realize, you might go, oh my God, but I don't want to be that person. But it's just, I'm not saying that to blame you at all. It's just that I want you to realize that the way that we have been conditioned inevitably puts you in that place where you're always trying to outsmart what's already there. You're always trying to cut corners and get to the finish line without doing the run. But it's not satisfying when you do that as an actor, and it's not satisfying to watch an actor doing that for an audience. It really is the satisfaction for you, the more than the satisfaction, the thrill and the bliss, and the reason why you're an actor is because of that beingness that you can feel when you're freely acting, when you're instinctive, when you don't know what's coming. And in order to do that, you can't be thinking. If your system is still programmed and wired to think, even though you don't want to think, it'll think. What you can do, you don't have to, but if you're catching yourself overthinking and you're wanting to use those legs again, which means your instinct, you're wanting to be able to not go into that tunnel of overthinking, but to straight away be there, present, alive, just like you are in life, and act from that place and not have to act at all, but just be, well, then it's time to undo that conditioning. Then it's time for you to go, oh yeah, got it. There's no point continuing to try and learn acting. That's not where your freedom is. It's not away from you. The freedom is already there. It's just the conditioning and the wiring that prevents you from accessing it. Please post your questions and we'll get to them. And I will also post the free training, Stop Trying to Be a Good Actor So You Have a Chance at Being Great. If you're interested in this work, just type reset in the comments and we'll send you some information. Right now, we're still doing the BOGO support during COVID so that you get to pay half price, which is pretty cool when you bring a friend. All right. Okay. Thank you, guys.